We're recording.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Before we get started, I do think it's important to take a moment of silence for those souls that we've lost, and to also think about the souls who are suffering and struggling through hardship. So if we could just take about 10 or 15 seconds just for a moment of silence. Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our joint assessment and accreditation council meeting. Cyndi and I will be walking you both through this. But what we would like to do is just briefly go around and introduce ourselves, just say who we are and where we're from. And Cyndi and I will start. I'm Christine Robinson from UNC Charlotte.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cyndi Bellacero. I'm from East Carolina University.
And I know it's hard, so I'm going to go to gallery view. I'm going to go, Dorothy, can you go next?
Okay, I'm Dorothy. I got Elizabeth City State.
Michelle Soler.
Good morning, Michelle Soler with the UNC System office.
Nicole.
Good afternoon, Nicole at Fayetteville State University.
Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Singer Freeman at University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Elise.
Hi, Elise Demeter, UNC Charlotte.
Jody.
Hey, I'm Jody Petazzoni. I'm at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro.
Rolinda.
Hello, I'm Rolinda Thomas. I'm at Fayetteville State University.
Heather.
I'm Heather Langdon. I'm at Appalachian State University.
Najwa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Najwa Hunley. I'm a presidential scholar at the UNC System office.
Harriet.
Hi, everyone. Harriet Hobbs, UNC Charlotte.
April.
Hello, everyone. My name is April Neal. I'm from Appalachian State University.
JC, did I pronounce that right?
It's Jackie,
Jackie,
but I answer to anything.
I'm Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Webb Dempsey at UNC Wilmington.
Lynn.
Lynn Williford, UNC Chapel Hill.
Mitch.
I'm Mitch Cottonware, UNC Charlotte.
Susan. I think we only have one.
Hi, I'm Susan Morrissey from East Carolina University.
Amy.
Amy Strickland from Western Carolina University.
Pauletta. I think you're on mute, Pauletta.
I sure am. Pauletta Brown Bracey, North Carolina Central University. And I had my hand on the mouse waiting.
Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy Hewitt, School of Science and Math.
Belinda.
Hello, everyone. Belinda Locke, UNC Chapel Hill Student Affairs.
Anne.
Hi, Ann Pemberton from UNC Wilmington.
Thelma.
Hello, I'm Thelma Woodard from North Carolina A&T State University.
Bryant.
Brian Hudson, UNC Chapel Hill.
Jeffrey.
I'm Jeff Patton, School of the Arts.
Sorry, I had to go to my second screen. Emily.
Hey, y'all. I'm Emily Maida from East Carolina University.
Jeanette, I think I might have missed you. Did you just come on?
Yes. Yes, I just came on recently. Jeanette Morris, East Carolina University.
Tim.
Good afternoon. Tim Metz, Western Carolina University.
Andy.
Good afternoon. Andy Mock, UNC Wilmington.
Michelle.
Hello, Michelle Scatton-Tessier, UNC Wilmington.
Samantha.
Hi, I'm Samantha Rich from NC State University in the Division of Academic and Student Affairs.
Stephanie.
Stephanie Dunstan, NC State Office of Assessment and Accreditation.
Leah.
Hi, Lee Bullard, UNC Wilmington.
Lee, sorry. Pedro.
Ian from North Carolina Central University.
Lynn.
As in Carolyn?
Yes, sorry, Carolyn.
Hi, it is Lynn from Winston-Salem State University.
I thought so, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Jason.
Yes, hello, Jason DiPolo, North Carolina A&T State University.
Regina.
Regina Williams Davis, North Carolina A&T State University. Hi, Jason.
Laura. Christ.
Laura Christ, Winston-Salem State.
Liz.
Liz Normandy, UNC Pembroke.
Tina.
Hi, everyone. This is Tina Hogan from Appalachian State University.
Kristen.
Hey, everybody. This is Kristen Dreyfus. I'm from East Carolina University.
And if I've missed anybody else, please introduce yourselves. Those are the folks who were showing up on my screen. Some came in at the last minute, so I might have missed you. Apologies. Okay, I got everyone. Well, that's surprising. Well, again, I guess it's good afternoon. Before we move to into our agenda, what I want to recognize, I'm not sure if I heard Dwayne Larrick on the call. If he is, please recognize, or please let me know you're here. And Liz Normandy, which I believe Liz was on the call. These are our, I want to recognize them because they are members of our SACS-COC Board of Trustees. So they are valuable, they have great information, and I wanted to let you know who those folks are. And if you, I'm sure they have, feel free to call, email, etc. Liz, I don't know if you want to recognize yourself.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
And yeah, you can call me.
Yeah, and we have, Harriet and I have called in. Liz has been around a good while and just finished the 10-year and site visit. So she is incredibly filled with a wealth of knowledge and experience.
Yes, I'm the historical memory. That's what they call me around here.
Okay.
I can't do anything else, but I have a historical memory.
All right, we'll move into the second part of our agenda, which are resources I just want to point you to. First is we started, I think, 2 years ago in trying to identify narratives that we as a group could draft such that other institutions could use those. So if you click that link, that is clickable, you'll see a series of folders, and I will tell you that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 narratives that we have drafted. Anyone can take and use and tweak. So our goal is really to support everyone in the system to be able to use that information as a foundational narrative from which to work to prepare for maybe your 5th or 10-year reaffirmation review. I will say that we have many more narratives that we have identified that we think we can craft for the group to use, but we will need some help to do that. So please email me if you're interested. We need some volunteers to help draft some more of the 4 twos, which are based on the state statutes and the UNC policies. Some of the 5 1s and 5 2s, again, based on policies. And then we have some other ones that, while institutions might differ, it would be great for groups to help identify a framework for response. So if anyone is interested in helping to draft any narrative, please let us know. You can do it individually or you could do it as a group. And Cyndi, I'm going to move on unless, did you see that in the chat? Did I need to answer that? Oh, could you please put the agenda in the chat? Okay. Can you do that, Cyndi, while I'm talking? I think that was a yes. Okay.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. Yes.
Okay. Next is You know what I'll also say is if you did not get an email from us, that means we don't have you on our list. What we can do is add you to our list, and we can add this information and the links, etc. Just email us and let us know. Next on our list, if you click that link, we do have a website. We know it is a little outdated, but you can click that. We are trying to post resources. The directory we have to update, so please let us know what names need to go there. But if you click on resources and then you click, it will come up and will ask for your university credentials, and you can log in that way. We have a vast number of pieces of information there, information from our last was it our last face-to-face? Well, 2019, I guess. So we have a lot of resources there. We are going to add to, and if you have suggestions for what to add to share with the group, please let us know that as well. Next, I wanted to let you know that we do have 2 listservs. We have the Accreditation Council listserv and the Assessment Council listserv. Sometimes we meet jointly, but sometimes we just need to meet separately, especially for those of us who are, really dealing with accreditation. But wanted to let you know that if you click on either of those and you want to ask a question or you need help, it will go to everybody on that list. So feel free to, share a resource or ask a question using either of those or both of those links. And lastly, we have, thanks to Amy Strickland, she's put together, I called it a curated list. It's a list of links to assessment journals, listservs, websites, etc. These are ones that I know some of us use regularly. So if you have suggestions for additions, let us know. I'm sorry, you just went to full screen, Cyndi. So, okay, all right.
I was trying to share the agenda so people could see what we were talking about.
That worked, that's worked, there you go.
Right.
So anybody have any questions about the resources that are available to you? If not, we'll move on. Cyndi will talk us through the some highlights about the narratives, reaffirmation that we should be paying attention to, and also major changes to the SACS substantive change policies. It's now what, 81 pages or something? So there's some major highlights we want to draw your attention to. If there are no other questions, Cyndi, I'll let you take it over.
Thank you, Christine. If you did not get a copy of the agenda, please let us know and we will send it to you, because we have links to all of the documents and files we were talking about today there for you to find them easily. Christine and Emily Maida, my coworker, and I attended a presentation by Dr. Denise Young that was actually to the community college system in Virginia within the last couple of weeks. And she gave a really wonderful breakdown of some of the new and upcoming changes that had happened over the last few months that we should probably pay attention to. And so I thought that was a good way to sort of organize pointing those out to you. And so she focused on policies and good practices and position statements in this particular workshop. And she made the distinction between a policy and a position statement, specifically, whereas policies are required courses of action that we need to undertake that usually are accompanied by a set of procedures, but that position statements really just describes the SACS-COC approach or stance on a particular topic that will sort of help aid us in creating our narrative. And that guidelines or advisory statements that will help assist us, and their recommended practices or commonly accepted practices. And so how to distinguish between those things as we were moving through their paperwork as we were preparing for reaffirmation or a fifth year, or just trying to keep track of all the different changes to the policy in those 81 pages. And so she focused on some key areas. One of them was faculty, institutional effectiveness, distance education, and institutional environment. Those were the 4 big areas that she focused on in that presentation. So in the faculty area, There's a new guideline for full-time faculty that addresses 6.1 and 6.2b, and that came out in June of 2019. And that is focusing on the adequate number of faculty to ensure quality and integrity of our academic programs. And she made a specific reference that it's not just about teaching when we answer that particular standard, that we also want to include things like curriculum development, advising, scholarly work, service. Those kinds of things also need to be addressed when we're describing our narrative. And then 6.1 should be a focus on our institution, whereas 6.2b should be a focus on programs, not the broad areas, but the programs themselves when we're talking about our faculty. She also described the interpretation on 6.2a, faculty qualifications, and that just came out in December of 2020. And so that interpretation is codifying the faculty from prior review form. So you have two options. You can use the faculty from prior review form, which lets you not show the credentials of faculty who were in your last decennial review. But if you use that form, you have to go all the way back on the ones that weren't the entire 10 years. And so it identifies who should be on your faculty roster, who shouldn't be on your faculty roster. And it also makes a definition of the instructor of record as a person who provides direct instruction for the course and is qualified to teach the course. And so it's giving us a specific definition of who the instructor of record should be on any particular course. We just had a discussion with our prior SACS VP, who we use as a consultant today, about the faculty from prior review form. And what he said to me was that most people choose the other one because that actually seems like more work to go back for 10 years for every instructor that wasn't priorly reviewed in an institution that has a large amount of faculty. He says for institutions with, like a few hundred faculty, that might be a good option, but when you're over 1,000 faculty, that most people tend to use that straight. We're going to credential everybody and show you their qualifications for the last year. And that seems to be the least path of resistance to demonstrate compliance. In the area of institutional effectiveness, there were two documents that she discussed. One was the interpretation of 8.1 student achievement, and that came out in December of 2019. She focused on the criteria of items to be measured, need to be rational. She talked about the threshold of acceptability being the minimal performance expected, and that you need to provide a rationale for that as yet. You need to talk about your actual performance as your outcome. Your goal should be a description of your target level of performance. And that you talk about how you publish your criteria, your outcomes, and your goals. And that you should discuss improvement efforts if you're not meeting your minimum threshold of acceptability. Also in this area, that key student completion indicator that we all had to pick. So they want you to compare your current performance to your baseline. Your baseline was set by SACS-COC in 2019, and so they want us to describe that. And that you need to disaggregate, and you need to give a rationale for how you choose to disaggregate, and your improvement efforts for disaggregated performance gaps are all things that sort of need to be discussed. I'm also going to tell you it's really helpful for you to really clearly identify your key student completion indicator in your narrative. As somebody who reviewed recently on an offsite committee, I was surprised that nobody actually told us what their indicator were. They were buried in that discussion, and I kind of guessed at what they were, but nobody actually was very explicit about what their indicators were. And so that's a good piece of information that you want to make easy for the reviewers to find.
And can I pipe in here on this one, Cyndi?
Sure.
You might address this, but for those of you who don't know, you cannot change your indicator. So you have to, and if you don't know what your indicator is, you go to your SACS VP.
Right. They gave us a choice, and then they gave us a chance to change it early on, and now it's set, at least for a while anyway. So the other document she talked about in the IE area was the interpretation of sampling, which came out this past December. And that interpretation applies to 7.3, 8.2a, and 8.2c. And it's telling you you may provide a sample, but it must be representative and mindful of your institutional mission. And it needs to provide a valid cross-section of the institution. So for 7.3, every major administrative division needs to be represented in that sample. In 8.2a, every major academic division and program level must be included in that sample. And you must make sure all off-campus instructional sites and DE programs are represented well in that sample. And for 8.2c, every major division needs to be represented as well. And then when you choose your sample, you have to make a compelling case as to why your sample is appropriate for your institution as a representative sample. So those were the highlights from the IE section. In distance education, they updated the language in the DE and correspondence courses policy. It was just a language update. There wasn't anything very substantial in that. In September of 2020, guidelines for the evaluation of distance education came out. And so that's focused on how reviewers should evaluate DE when they're on a review committee. It's a new document that was developed by the Council of Regional Accrediting Commissions, CRAC, and it gives examples of evidence to help reviewers review properly. And then guidelines for addressing distance education and correspondence courses came out in September of 2020, and that's the institutional version of the guidelines. And so that's a new document as well. And it may be helpful in responding to 14.3. Also, there's an interpretation of standard 13.8, which is institutional environment, that just came out in December 2020 as well. And that's highlighting information relating to the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights for possible violation about alleging sexual violence. If you don't have any cases, you have to explicitly state in your narrative that you don't have any cases. You can't just, if you don't have it, gloss over it. You have to let them know specifically that you don't have any. Some other policy updates. Policy on the institutional obligations for public disclosure came out in September, and that's an updated statement of accreditation. I did not know about that until we went to that particular workshop, and then Emily and I have spent the last week trying to update the language on all the various web pages where it lives at our institution now. So we're working on that. I think we've got most of them. There might be a couple others we need to update, but most of them we got there. The dues and fees have gone up for the 5th year interim report effective 7/1/2021. It'll be $3,500. And there are several new fees for mergers and consolidations. If you don't know, we have an updated resource manual. Dr. Denise said that there were no major changes. There were mainly clarifications in the resource manual. And so there weren't any really large scale changes to it. It was just an update. We also have an updated handbook, and we have a document index on the website with live links, which is really helpful in finding things. Another key piece of information I found useful is that we should send our correspondence to SACS through UPS or FedEx signature verified instead of the post office, because of all the difficulties we've been having getting mail through the post office recently. Things aren't getting there. And so to send them UPS or FedEx signature required instead, to make sure they get there in a timely fashion. So those are all the major things we learned from attending that workshop. I found some of those nuggets really helpful. Some things I knew, some things I didn't know. So I was glad, especially that accreditation statement update. It's not a huge change, but it's a change, and it needed to be updated everywhere. Christine, did I miss anything? We're good. All right. So the next section is our new sub-change policy. So the sub-change policy had a major overhaul. and just was posted last month in January. So the changes are a result of the federal regulations which affect our accreditation requirements. Christine sat on that committee who helped shape those changes. And so thank you for giving our system a voice in that. There will be topic-specific online training webinars starting up this year that will help us navigate those changes. And so one of the major changes was in the way it's organized. So previously it was organized around the SACS process, process 1, process 2, process 3. Now the categories revolve around the type of change it is, as opposed to the SACS process that needs to be undertaken. So the major groupings are institutional changes, programmatic changes, off-campus instructional sites, and then there's like an other category for things that just don't quite fall into any of those categories. So institutional changes are changes that are global and apply to the whole institution. They're not very common changes. They're not things we need to speak to often. So mergers, consolidations, mission changes are examples of institutional sub-change items. Programs are the large component of the changes. It's the largest category. There are lots of changes in them. Some of the highlights. They're defining programs with 29 to 49% of new comment require notification to SACS. So once you go past 24% of new content, it requires a notification. Once you go above 49%, I believe it requires approval. Adding additional methods of delivery to an existing program requires notification starting January of this year. So that's a new thing for us. Most of us, once we were approved to offer DE, it was a blanket approval at the institutional level. Now we must notify them anytime we have a new DE offering in programs. And that goes for other things. If you had DE and no face-to-face and you started adding face-to-face, you would need to notify for that. If you're going competency-based, you need to notify for that as well. New programs. Significant departure is defined as 50% or more of new content, exclusive of general education courses. So it's only discipline content only, that needs approval. So 25 to 49% requires notification. If you're going 50% or more, that's deemed significant departure and requires approval before you change content. Program length. So an increase or decrease of 25% or more, and the changes are expected to affect student time to completion by 1 term or more, needs approval. And so it has to have both those things, a decrease or increase that crosses that 25% level and affects time to completion in order to require approval ahead of time. In the off-campus instructional site section, there's a significant change as well. So we have 2 types of approval for sites that are 50% or more. Extensive and limited review is done for those approvals. The extensive review is highlights things like the administrative capacity at the institutional level, institutional finances, the site, physical and maintenance of it, site faculty, site student learning support. This is done by the full board. The deadline for that review is 3/15 for implementation for fall semester. So if you're going to implement in the fall, it has to be in by March 15th for that extensive review. A limited review is what we're used to for 50% or above at a site. It's the prospectus, it's reviewed by staff. So it's site faculty, finances, and student learning support. That can be done year round. And it has a pared down prospectus from the previous version that we're used to. Here's the really big important part. Every institution must go through at least 2 extensive reviews before you can be considered for limited review. Even if you already have several sites at 50% or more, it's a reset. The next two have to be extensive reviews before you can do a limited review again. So this is independent of any site that's already approved. Now, if we're going through reaffirmation, those sites can be included with the materials for reaffirmation, and that will be considered an extensive review. So if you're close to your reaffirmation cycle, you can have one of your extensive reviews done along with your reaffirmation and don't have to do it separately. Closures of off-campus instructional sites. So any site at 25 to 49% is a letter and a teach out plan approval from SACS. They removed the option to make a site inactive but left open. I didn't even know we could do that, but it's gone now. It's gone now. We can reopen a closed site within 5 years with just a notification. That I did know. They removed exceptions for workforce development certificate programs. And they added guidance on authorized committee visits to newly approved international sites. So one is required, and after that, it's at the discretion of SACS-COC whether they need to visit any other international sites. And so I think I got through all the high points. Christine, did I miss anything?
Yes, did we talk about if you have a joint or dual program with a non-Title IV, they tweak that, you can only go up to, was it 49 or 50%? You can't go over that. Yeah, okay, I may have missed that.
No, I didn't cover it. Thank you for adding it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the highlights?
I do, Cyndi. This is Harriet.
Hi.
Hi, if your institution is doing the differentiated process, will the offsites be limited or extensive?
We're going to be extensive, Harriet. We're
okay. Oh, okay. So it don't matter what happened in the 5th year, even though it was okay. Just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, the clock reset with the new sub change policy in January of this year, and everybody has to go to extensives before they'll be considered for limited again.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions? Because I know we threw a lot at you.
I know, it's a lot of information. I need to spend a lot of time studying the new document just to be familiar with it again. It's a massive change from what I'm used to in reporting. So
I have one.
I agree, Cyndi.
Dorothy, is that you? You had one?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Could you please repeat what you said about the off-campus instructional side? If you're going through reaffirmation, what you're supposed to do?
So if you're going through reaffirmation and you need to have an extensive review, you can couple your extensive review into your reaffirmation.
Okay, that's only if you're going to initiate a new site, not if you already have one in existence.
Right. All the sites we have are already on the list and they're fine.
Okay.
You don't have to do anything more for those, but when you're adding new sites, you can do it as part of your reaffirmation process.
Okay, just wanted to be sure I got that straight. Thank you.
And thank you, Heather, for putting the link to the, so Kevin and I'm going to forget his assistant director's name, did a presentation at SACS-COC, and there's a video and there are handouts for their slides that are on the website. I looked to see if there are any workshops yet. They haven't posted any. So the best thing you could probably do is go to the website and see the video and the handouts that they have.
Right.
Robin, thank you. Jody. I do want to say, yep, January 2021, which is gone. Yep. I do want to say that I started and sent you all an email about a takeaway sheet. So a lot of what Cyndi said is there, And anything else I found, now I took way more, I'm a great note taker, so I didn't include everything, but I included the things that I thought that you might need to know, and broke them down into different categories. Let me see if I can get to that.
Let me stop sharing so you can share it.
I don't even know where it is right now. I have like too many files open.
Let's see if it'll allow me into the Google Doc.
But basically, I think I broke it down into just general, and then there are some sub change, and then there are some related to the narrative. So anything, if you've been to the conference, I'm going to give you some time here at the end, because we have plenty of time for this to be a collaborative discussion about what people have found. Please add to that document because it is helpful for everyone, and everyone can have access. And, you know, there are all these nuances that different institutions experience that we all need to be aware of in, you know, just in preparation. I do want to note that if you registered for the 2020 SACS-COC conference, you can still go back and review any of the videos from the conference and download any of the presentation handouts. But I believe that that's going to be cut off like early March, because if I remember right, Dr. Whelan said 90 days. So I took like a half day last week to go look through and look at some of those videos and download some of those presentations. So you may want to put that on your list and do that soon. Before we just open it up to the floor, I wanted to give the opportunity to certain institutions who have been through the 5th year in reaffirmation process and site visit. You are not required, and I hope I express that to every those who I'm about to name. You're not required to share, but if you have something to share with the group, please feel free to do so. I believe NC State and UNCG went through the 5th year report. Either of those folks represented want to share anything with the group?
Well, so I guess just a reminder that it's not abbreviated responses to the standards, it's an abbreviated list of standards. So it's just as intense filling this out as it is doing it for the 10-year. You just have fewer responses that you have to put together. Still incredibly stressful, you know, getting that package done, getting it, you know, formatted right and put on the drive and the mailing. Just leave yourself so much time to get that done. We also had to go through an on-site visit as part of ours because we had added 3 or more sites since our 10-year. So we ended up doing a virtual visit, of course, because we didn't get our visit. Our visit was scheduled for, gosh, I can't remember, like March 21st through the 23rd or something like that. So ours got rescheduled to May, and then it got rescheduled to September, and then it became a virtual visit. And our virtual visit went incredibly well, like incredibly well. They were all in their homes and we were all here. I think for the most part, we did work from campus, but we had to do virtual tours of all of our sites. So we had to take cameras to our sites and walk them through the whole facility, which was a really interesting experience. But as a reminder for that, we over-prepared because we were like doing practice question and answer kinds of sessions, and our reviewers said, look, you wrote to us that these facts are true, and we're here to ask you, are these facts true? So we had a lot of interviews that were less than 10 minutes long because they just needed to have FaceTime with people to say, this is what we're reading. Could you explain just one little thing about it, but is it true? And then they'd move on. So it was a really pleasant experience, really collegial experience, really positive experience, but very interesting to be doing tours in a virtual way for people who are farther off. One thing that we haven't heard is whether they will actually come and do boots on the ground with us. They told us that the US Department of Education said that somebody still has to come to those sites and look at them physically, but that was in September. And, they've postponed all of the spring visits or they've moved them to virtual for spring of 2021. And our 5th year is supposed to be considered at the June meeting. So we're waiting to hear whether someone's actually going to visit our campus before, that June meeting. So that's still up in the air. We have, it's like I said, an abbreviated set of responses, but we have essentially practice responses in place for the 10-year. So we walked away from this really happy to have gone through this whole review. We've now got 24, 25 responses that are in a really good place. We had a referral report for one tiny little thing related to international admissions. It's due April 1st, and we think we're going to be done with it by this coming Monday. So we're not feeling bad about it at all. And our vice president looked at what we were told to do, and she was like, never seen a committee ask for that before. So that's interesting. So I think we're going to be okay with it. We're feeling okay about it. But I will tell you the one item that Cyndi mentioned, the one standard that Cyndi mentioned that I don't think gets enough attention is 8.1. We really, really worked a lot of hours, spent a lot of time putting together our site, talking about our goals and our targets, talking about what we had done with the data afterward. I would say 8.1, if there's one that I would say put on your radar, if you don't have it on your radar right now, 8.1 would be the one. I think it's much bigger than people think that it is. And I think that's about it.
Jody, I'm going to ask a question. You said practiced responses. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you mean?
Well, what I mean by, this is a review, right? But for the 10-year, you ramp up and you go through a lot of work and you try and figure out how you're going to put all your logistics together and how are you going to train people to respond to these. The 5th year was a good practice run for us for the 10-year. That's what I mean by that.
I was thinking you had a list of questions for, we tried to do that in our 5th year to prepare folks as like these questions might be asked. Sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. So it's
okay.
like,
Yeah. So we actually, we set up virtual Zoom meetings where we did rehearsals essentially for responding to those questions. So I would say to them, you've got to read the response. Interestingly, the site visit is a completely separate report from the 5th year visit. If you have sites for the 5th year, you're doing 2 completely separate reports that are considered by 2 different committees that will be evaluated in 2 different ways by the Board of Trustees. It's 2 full reviews. So we were writing 2 reports, and it was really intense. So yeah, we did practice sessions with our students. Our nursing students had a session where they got to ask all the questions that they wanted to, so that they understood what they were getting into, because sometimes people don't understand in those interviews what to expect. So we did practice runs with students, we did practice runs with faculty, we did practice runs with the provost and the deans and all of the administrators, so that they could know what was going to be asked, know what the expectations were, and to know how to answer. And then there's always things that pop up that you didn't expect. I will tell you that with the offsite, the committee asked about workload, asked the group of nursing faculty, because we had a nursing site set up, asked them about their workload and whether they had time to do all of the work that they needed to do. And one of the faculty went on to talk about his private practice as a physician's assistant and the work that he did. And I was just sitting there going, I don't know how you think this is relevant to what we're talking about for our accreditation. But he just went on and on and on. So you just never know where the conversations are going to go, even as you try and explain to them, this is what they're here for, this is their focus. So just interesting experiences. But like I said, really collegial, it all went really well.
Congrats.
Thanks. And we had no follow-ups from our off-campus sites. The referral report was only for the 5th year. We walked away with our on-campus review 100% clean.
Great. I'm going to hold off on my question, but Harriet, please remind me about international site visits. Thank you. For the reaffirmation reports, Elizabeth City or North Carolina A&T, Pembroke or Winston-Salem, any representatives there want to talk about the reaffirmation report or site visit to share with the group?
Our site visit, I'm from North Carolina A&T, and our site visit is coming up March 23rd through 25th. So needless to say, we are doing exactly what was just suggested. We are having small meetings with our administrators and faculty and staff. And now that she's spoken, I think I need to pull a few students into a Zoom room as well so that we can prepare to work with our on-site committee. And I've been on visits, of course, physically. The virtual visit experience is going to be a little bit new. So I was still trying to get logistically in my head, how this would work. We did some video recordings of areas on our campus so that we do have that available also. But I think that we'll be able to speak to you a little more intelligently after we have our on-site visit.
All right, thank you.
This is Lynn from Winston-Salem. We just had our on-site last week. We've almost recovered. And it was a visit that was postponed from last April. So going into it, I think one of the hardest things was to kind of get our heads wrapped around. We were really talking about data from 2 years ago. And so that was complicated. And in a couple of places needed to update things like administrators and things that had changed, which got really complicated. And because we've got so many people that are in interim positions trying to get them to understand, what somebody's position description really was, whatever. We actually came out with no recommendations against any standard. We've got 2 things in the QEP they want us to address, and we've not even gotten a written report yet, so I don't exactly know what that is. But it was intense. And as the person that was trying to set schedules, I mean, every 2 hours, because everything's being done by email. And so, they would say, well, so-and-so wants to meet with so-and-so, or somebody wants to meet with a group of people about X. Well, who are those people? Because I need to know that, we're not crossing committee members. And so Tuesday was our first full day, and we were still meeting at 6:30 Tuesday evening, and it had just been meeting after meeting all day long. And as someone said, usually 1 or 2 questions about something, they're just trying to verify, but still you've got all these meetings set for half an hour that just goes on and on and on. One thing we found is that almost in every meeting, they ask a question about the QEP, which we all found really interesting. And so no matter what you're doing, be sure that everybody has read your QEP that's going to be interviewed. Instead of doing sort of the interview process that has been described, I took every standard once I knew who they were asking to see and sent that, what we had written to people, and said, be sure that you understand what we said, because they're here to verify this is true. So make sure that you've read this, you know what we said, and that you understand what we said. And if you don't, let me know so that we can help you understand that very quickly. So it was intense. They were very collegial. I mean, learn things. People were very helpful about, well, this is the way we do it. You might just want to consider it, but it didn't become any kind of recommendation. And so it felt like it was a really good review, but we were exhausted by the end of it just because of the running around trying to get things scheduled. And even I had to talk to our vice president. He said, well, this is the kind of thing I'd normally just pull you aside in the hall. We have to set up a time to talk to each other. And so it makes it complicated that way. We did also a video. We had our communications area create a video of our campus that was 18 minutes. I think they had suggested around 15 was plenty. And so then we had no questions really about that. So it was thorough, but we were real happy with the outcome.
Great, thank you.
This is Liz from UNC Pembroke. We did our virtual site visit last fall, It went pretty well. We didn't do anything in particular to prepare people, but they seemed to do pretty well. We got hammered pretty hard about the QEP. And at the end of the day, we only had one recommendation about the assessment piece. And so we've just now turned in our response report about the QEP. So we're pretty well done. And the hardest part was staring at the screen, staring at people on screen for 2 days straight. You know, that was really kind of weird, and it was really kind of different because you couldn't read people's expression. You couldn't respond like you would in a meeting. You know, you might face-to-face meeting, you might respond. You could tell what they were asking, what they were thinking. You could respond to it. But talking to a screen was like, you know, it was just going out there somewhere. So that's a bit stressful, I would say.
And if I could add to that, you know, when they ask a question, because we can't all see each other, if there are enough people in the room, you're sort of waiting for somebody else on your team to respond. And so there's this awkward silence. You know, it's like, we don't know the answer, but we do. You're just sort of, and you can't look around the room and look at somebody and go, you answer this. So that was a little stressful. And in relation to the QEP, our vice president said that almost everybody is getting a recommendation against the QEP. So I don't know what it is this time, and ours was against our assessment plan.
Well, that's been the case for a long time. QEPs haven't, only about 50% of them pass the first time, and it's almost always about assessment. But they almost always get through the next round. By the time we're looking at them on the board, it's been satisfied. You know, it's really, it's almost like, and I couldn't understand it because I thought what we had was fine. But it's almost like they have to find it. You know, it has to be there. You know, it's got to be something wrong with assessment of the QEP. And at the end of the day, the response we made wasn't much different. We took the material we had before and added to it, but it really wasn't dramatically different. It was just like they had to find something, and that was what they found. We also haven't heard about them coming to visit in person. Like Jody was saying, they told us in September that, yeah, somebody would have to come to the campus to visit, but we haven't heard any more about it. I guess at some point, as soon as they figure out how they want to do that, then they will, I guess. They insinuated that the chair of the committee, who lives in South Carolina, would just drive up and look around. But he's retiring, so I don't know exactly. You know, it didn't sound like the vice president was going to come, that they were going to send some member of the committee, but I don't think they figured out how they want to do it yet. But we haven't heard anything. But I wouldn't be surprised if somebody turns up. You know, here we are, show us around, you know, just to make sure you're actually physically here.
Any other folks want to share before I open it up? Go ahead, Dorothy.
Yeah, we mailed out our focus report last week. We had eight standards we had to respond to. So that went out last week. And this week, actually due tomorrow, our VP sent us a mini report to submit to the on-site, to the committee that is going to view our off-site. We have one. So I'm working on that. It goes out tomorrow. We're having mock interviews. While I'm not sure who they'll be choose to interview, I identified certain people that I know that are strong on certain areas. And some great people have volunteered to serve as, to participate in the mock interview. I don't have their permission to call their names, so I'll leave that alone. So we just go through the motions and hopefully we're going to make it as real as possible. And we'll learn our mistakes from there, see where we need to strengthen up. And as somebody, I think Jody talked about the awkward silence. What we decided to do is divide it up. So like for QEP, anything that has to do with topic, one person will respond. Anything that has to do with broad-based support, one person is responsible for that. That way, when a question comes, since we're not all going to be in the same room, we're not wondering, oh, who is going to take that? And we don't have only one person responding to everything. So hopefully that might be a good strategy right now, and I do not know. But I know we're quite nervous, but I told them, listen, what I did was created a OneDrive so everybody has the original submission and then the offsite comments. And if your standard was part of the focus report, then you have what we submitted. So I said, if you read it and know what's in there, we should be fine. Don't say anything outside of what's provided. Keep to the script and we should be good. And then once, after we submitted, I went back and I read the offsite comments. I realized that even for the standards that we were found compliant on, there were some subtle hints in there. So I said, listen, if you have this standard where we're found compliant, it's this thing like the mission, the manual was updated, but the mission was old, was not updated. So we went back and updated that, and we had a policy that was revised, but it wasn't what we uploaded was the old one. So we went back and took care of that. So little things like that. And I'm glad I went back and read it because at first I was like, well, we're compliant on those, so I shouldn't. But going through it, I found some subtle hints and suggestions that they made. So we've been trying to clean that up before the March 15th. And hopefully after that, I can tell you whatever else we've learned. But it's exhausting, and I tip my hat out to all of you who have been doing this for a while.
Hi everyone. This is Nicole Lucas from Fayetteville State. I just have a few things to share, and that's only because I'm an observer on a virtual visit and had a chance to sit down to see how the schedule is made. And so that QEP, so for example, on March 17th, for the institution, we're meeting at 9 to 9:45 to talk about the QEP. Then we come back again from 10 to 10:45 to talk about the QEP again. And then from 2:30 to 3:30, we're doing interviews and finishing up the QEP. So that gives you an idea in terms of the QEP, how hard, I guess, we're hitting it as a committee in terms of really talking about, and they're talking about all aspects of it in terms of institutional support, institutional capacity in order to do the QEP, and then interviews, of course, with the QEP committee and key stakeholders. In terms of all the other interviews that we talked about, aside from talking about or talking with members of the QEP steering committee and so forth, staff from the areas of student services, of course, faculty. We also talked about wanting to have interviews with library faculty, folks in IE, and also talking with administrators and people from financial services. So, and then we have until the 19th to submit our list of anyone else who would like to talk to at the university. So as you can see, is very open, and there are lots of interview times blocked for interviews. And so just wanted to let you know that you know, I think as the offsite team, as they read through the focus reports and read through the compliance report, it's really kind of open as to who they can elect to talk with during those multiple sessions that have been designated for interviews.
This is Lynn. I just thought of another thing. We got a lot of pushback on 4.2C, which is this chancellor's evaluation. So I would encourage you all, and part of it's because of the way it's handled at the system. There's not a lot of feedback to the chancellors. And so I would encourage you, our chancellor actually had to show on his phone because he couldn't get it to upload an email from the president. He just showed on the screen. So I would encourage you to get your chancellors to pull across any information they get back on their annual eval, and especially their 4-year eval, and put that somewhere so that people can find it, because you're going to want several years of that, and then you're really going to want evidence that the process was followed for that 4-year review, both on your campus at your board of trustees, and then definitely some feedback from the system that was reviewed with the chancellor. And we struggled up to the last minute trying to get that evidence.
And if we have an interim chancellor, then we're going back even more years in order for that information, to get that information correct. Because I don't think they do an evaluation for interim chancellors.
Nicole, I'm not sure if that was a question, but I'm going to say from UNC Charlotte, we did ask our SACS VP, and she did say, because we just got a new chancellor, and she said, yes, you do have to go backwards.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else want to share before we move on, just to open the floor to questions? I do have one question. I did remember, Harriet. We do have an international site. Is there anyone on the call where you had a site visitors go to international site? I was thinking that they were just not going to do that. And we were told, nope, we're going to have to go visit. Has anyone recently been involved with that can share? Okay, so we're on our own. I think you're on mute, Cyndi.
You'll have to give us an update after you find out. Nobody knows.
Okay, all right. I am going to open it to the floor now because we have about 28 minutes, and feel free to ask questions of anyone or ask questions about anything you like.
Well, I have a comment. So I want to first say thank the group for their insight and ideas. And so I have a recommendation or suggestion. I think Jody or someone mentioned they have like questions that you share with committee members who are being interviewed. So if we can kind of keep like those resources together as well, I think that'll help, similar to how we kind of came together to write the standards, the narratives for the standards that are around governance. But if we have some tidbits or some takeaways for others to use, like questions that we can probably tweak with our institution, I think that would be great as we go through this process. And let's just say, hey, here are the questions where we debrief, or here are the questions that we gave to those that would be interviewed. If we can kind of keep a resource.
So I will mention, and somebody else said it earlier, the most important thing that the people in the interviews can do is read your response thoroughly, like every word, because sometimes the committee members will focus on a paragraph or a process or even like a phrase. And I would say my biggest piece of advice to anyone preparing people for interviews is do yourself a favor and read the response. If you don't know, you're sitting in front of these people and you don't know what your own institution said about the work that you're there to represent, you're already at a huge disadvantage. And I had a couple people who showed up who did not read the responses, and they really looked silly, like really looked silly.
Well, Jody, I mean, that is definitely what we always do, inform them. But again, like you said, you have individuals who just choose not to. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, you're a silent bunch today. Okay. Or you're just hungry. I'm not sure which.
I think everyone's hungry.
Well, I'll give it another couple of minutes, and then if not, then we can adjourn. And Michelle, do you want to tell us where this will be posted? So if folks weren't here and we want to send it out to the listserv, we can say, hey, or.
We'll send it out to the listserv.
Okay.
We don't know where it will be posted.
Okay.
Well, I guess, do we want to mention upcoming conferences? We have a combined NCARE and SCARE conference coming up, and we have Kevin Seitler. He will be there as a keynote. And so for those interested in the new sub-change policy, feel free to go ahead and register for the conference. It's a virtual one-day conference later this month. And I think the website is ncare.net. I can look it up really quick, but information is there.
The other thing I'll mention, thank you, Heather, for that. I had meant to sign up for that, and I think I've forgotten because it was a little while ago. IUPUI's call for proposals is March 1st. So, and the conference will be free again this year. So if you're interested in submitting, and if anybody wants to collaborate on anything, you know, we can do that as well. What else? The AALHE conference is coming up. Karen, Harriet, or Mitch or at least from my group, I can't remember when it is. Does anybody know?
I think it's the first week in June, like June 7th, something like that.
And it's virtual again, right? This year?
It is virtual. And it's more expensive than Assessment Institute. So you have to have membership and register. So it'll be, I think, $250 to attend. I'll plug something else if I can, if we're plugging things. I think Christine might have sent this email around, but AALHE has a journal called Intersection, a journal at the intersection of assessment and learning. And we're doing a special issue with a deadline for submissions March 1st on the Grand Challenges Project, which I know we've talked to you about in the past. But one of the grand challenges is improving the extent to which we measure institutional excellence over time. And, people were talking about successful reaccreditation and reaffirmation and stuff like that. And it's pretty loose guidelines for a submission. So it can be anywhere between 2,000 and 8,000 words. And if your institution has figured out a good way to track change over time as a way to improve measurement of institutional excellence, and you might want to share it, I encourage you to consider submitting. And if you have any questions, you can shoot me or Christine an email and we can help you.
And since Karen did a plug for Intersections, she's on the editorial board there. I'm not on the editorial board for Allie's Emerging Dialogues, which is a lot smaller. You only have to go up to 1,200 words. So if you're interested in a short, focused piece, let me know that as well. Because, and I'm going to say, I know all of you are doing fantastic work. It would be great to share that with the masses. Okay, anyone else want to plug anything? Okay, Michelle, do you want to have the last word?
That's not fair. Sure, I'll have the last word. Thanks everybody for showing up today. And if you are not on the listserv by chance and want to be, please shoot me an email. If you are on the listserv and don't want to be, there is a unsubscribe in there. So we're trying to make sure that we are combining accurately the assessment and the accreditation councils. So we apologize for any duplication you're getting, but don't be shy to let me know if you're getting 4 or 5 emails from us and don't want to.
Sorry, Michelle, do you also want to plug, or maybe Stephanie or Chrissy want to plug the Gen Ed, the next meeting?
Stephanie, are you on?
Yep, I'm here. Yep, so our next meeting, we have been reaching out to some schools in the system who are doing great things with Gen Ed assessment and their Gen Ed models. And so in the next meeting, we want to showcase some of those institutions and to see what they're doing, some of their best practices, and then also talk about strategies for communicating the value of Gen Ed on our campuses. So that's coming up in March.
And Chrissy, I don't know if you want to plug May. I know I'm putting you on the spot. Is she still here? Well, I'll plug May. We will have a meeting in May, and the May meeting, we recognize that we thank you, one, for participating in the interviews. We found them incredibly exciting, just knowing the amount, the work and some of the challenges. So what we're going to try and do in May is we thought it wasn't fair that you gave us all that information. We didn't feed you anything back. So we will share what we have gathered from that, and then, start to plan for the next year for the group. So keep those dates in mind. Stephanie said March, I can't remember the date, but then there's a May date that we have not set yet, but we will set one in May. Cyndi, you want
Oh, you know what? We can ask everybody to think about the RFP, right? We have.
Yes, go for it.
We have been working on a system office RFP for assessment and accreditation software. And so it will be going out soon. So if there are companies we want to make aware that the RFP is out there because we'd like them to apply, let us know. So if there's a particular software company that you use for assessment or accreditation purposes that we would like to try to barter at the system office level for, please give us the name of that company, and we can have the person who handles the RFP make sure that they see it, because it'll only be out for a limited period of time.
I was going to say, and so since this is recorded, if you want to contact that company between now and when the RFP is released, please do so. Once the RFP is released, we need to let the communications go through the system office, and that will happen around March 1st.
Cyndi, can you remind me where we can see the list that we've already kind of put together of software?
I don't know that we have it posted anywhere.
Gotcha.
So I'll have to fish back through our communications and see if we can find it.
Okay, I was just wondering I can't remember what we already had.
We did not get a good response the first time, so we decided to reissue it.
Gotcha. That's right. Thanks.
And for those of you who might be wondering the RFP and why, what we're trying to do is, some of us use different software. Some of us have homegrown, but those of us who have bought it or have looked into it know how expensive it is. So our goal was to, have some of these companies come in, present, and see if we could, have, and you're not required to use it. Understand that, not required. But if you're interested in using it, you might get a break on the price. Because I know some of our softwares, we're paying for this one for 6 months, it's $100,000. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous. So, so that's really the goal, is to get a good software for those of us who want it, and to get it at a more than just a one-off price. So. If there's nothing else, I guess I want to thank you for showing up today. Please be safe and healthy. I would like to see you all back here again on March 31st at 12:30. All right.
Thanks, Christine and Cyndi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.